Well, hello and welcome, awesome students, to week 5. Things happen to move very quickly, right? And hope you're having a lot of fun in the process. I hope you're getting a lot out of the class, because this is certainly a very important class, as pretty much everyone here is working towards a degree in the helping professions and mental health someplace. And so this is obviously an important class and will kind of set you up for success as you work into other classes within the program, as well as a graduate program. Therapy is an important element of what we do. But nonetheless, I hope you're keeping up with the readings. That is critically important, and you're going to start to see especially why this week. And I do want to stress, if there are any students that are still working on last week's coursework, make sure and get that submitted ASAP. Definitely want to get your feedback moving forward, but as things are going to start to pick up over this week and next week, you want to make sure that you're on top of your game as we dive into the submissions. And so let's talk about the submissions for this week. I want to make sure that you're on path for success. So this week we're going to address a couple of things, primarily in the journal submission as well as the assignment this week. We're going to talk about things related to barriers to treatment. As you notice right here, barriers to care in mental health. And we're going to identify, or really kind of discuss this week in the journal, there's no discussion post this week, ways that we can mitigate that, ways that we can work through this. As you work into the mental health field, that you're going to find there are barriers that the clients have, but there are also barriers that you might have in terms of providing services. So we're going to start to identify some of these things and go through it just a bit in the journal, and this will help you align your mind in terms of treatment planning, which we're also going to address this week. So with regard to the reading this week, there is no assigned reading in the textbook, and everybody's going to say, yay. But that doesn't mean, number one, that there's no assigned readings this week, and number two, that you're not going to utilize your textbook in the development of some of your submissions this week. And so keep that in mind. But I really want to stress again the importance of keeping up with the reading, going through these materials first, and then working toward developing your submissions will help you greatly to have a nice foundation of information. And as you're going through the readings, you might jot some notes down or think about some things. What I always encourage students to do is to review what they have going on this week. You should be actually reading through your requirements 3 times. You do it on Monday, get an overview of what you have in terms of expectations, go through the reading materials after that. Then as you sit down to do the assignment, read through the requirements twice, and that will make sure that you have a clear understanding of the expectations. Okay, so if you pre-read the requirements for this week for the assignments, you'll have a good idea of the importance of these articles. And some of the things that I want to really clarify with you is, don't be in the habit of just coming to this page and reading the abstract thinking that you have all the information that you need to address the questions. Make sure to select whether you want to review this as a PDF that you'll download to your computer, or perhaps you want to view it online, which is what this is right here. But go through this submission, get a clear understanding of what they're talking about. I could see, or I was going to suggest that you can always see if this is primary or secondary research based on the formatting of the document. If this is set up as a study, and it is, as they talk about participants and procedures and methodologies, the measures that they're using, that means they were conducting primary research, okay? If we take that information and start to summarize it or combine it with other articles, that becomes secondary research. So keep that in mind when you're finding your research sources online. Primary and secondary sources are always the best. So there's another reference in here. There's actually a couple more references in there. There's some videos, but also this chart that talks about some impairments or some barriers to therapy. And this is more specific toward visually impaired clients. I've actually not had any experience with visual impairments, but have had several therapy sessions and supportive interventions that I've provided to individuals that have hearing impairments. And I can tell you the list of barriers, the challenges that you work through amplify greatly when we factor in such as hearing loss or visual loss or other impairments that limit their ability to take in information. And let me actually say it in a different way. Their ability to take in information is usually fine. It's our ability to deliver that information. You might have things that you might normally hand to a client that now all of a sudden they can't read, or if you're talking about some things, maybe they can't hear you. And so this is some things to really think about and consider as you're developing your journal submission this week. And let's talk about specifically what that is. So as I mentioned, pre-read on Monday, get a good understanding of what the expectations are. And then when you sit down to do your assignment, read through all this information again. And then before you start typing your first word, read through it again to make sure that you're clear on the expectations. So identify your barrier, a barrier that you would like to explore. This might be something that you've personally experienced. Maybe it's something that you've seen. Maybe if you're working in some settings where you've seen some clients dealing with some of this stuff. Maybe just along the way you've found something within the research that you want to talk about, visual impairment, hearing impairment, and so forth. Talk about some of these things. Describe the identified barriers. Notice how it says describe. So talk about it a little more in depth than just a single bullet point or two. And discuss some strategies that you might have to. Sometimes you can't really eliminate the problem. You can't eliminate the barrier. Sometimes you can, but sometimes it's just about a matter of making it easier. Okay, we might not be able to fully address the challenge, but we can make it easier for the practitioner, easier for the client, easier to receive services or to get more access to services or whatever the case might be, and discuss any ethical principles that you might need to address when you're working with this particular population, okay? And this is going to be developed in a 2 to 3 page paper. I'm going to talk a little bit about formatting here toward the end of the video. But when the assignment calls for a 2 to 3 page submission, you should be thinking in your mind 3 pages. The reason why I say this is because historically I've seen that students struggle to put their thoughts together to really talk about the topic and cover everything they need to cover. So I always encourage students to go a little bit higher in terms of the content so that they have some good information, and hopefully I can piece together where they were going with their thought process. As you get better at writing, you're going to find you can put more depth, more content in a condensed amount of space. That maybe closer to 2 pages is going to be where you need to be. Now, having said that, when students only turn in a page or a page and a half on a submission, I also have to consider the guidelines. It says 2 to 3 pages. That is a requirement of what we're talking about here. So keep that in mind. It's not always about the length, unless, of course, it is about the length if you're shorter than 2 pages. So I hope that makes sense. Times New Roman, 12-point font. Every one of your submissions moving forward throughout the program should always be in Times New Roman, 12-point font. That is a standard APA font and size of the fonts that you'll want to utilize. 1-inch margins all the way around. And your sources should be cited in APA style. Make sure to have those in-text citations. And I'll talk about some tools and some tips to help you to format better as I wrap up this video presentation here. So let me talk about the assignment to give you an overview of that. Again, you've read through this before you've done the readings. You have a good understanding of what the assignment's about. By the way, if you have some questions Monday or Tuesday as you pre-read the week, make sure and reach out and ask for some assistance with that. But when you're developing this submission this week, this is going to be a little bit different than anything we've done in this class. Maybe you've done this type of stuff in other classes, maybe you haven't, but we're going to utilize something called a case vignette. And what a case vignette is really just a small snippet of information, a hypothetical client with a presenting problem and some background information. Just some basics in terms of you having an understanding of what we're looking at here. So you're going to want to read through this vignette a couple of times, maybe if you have a printer or just want to take some notes down on some of these key factors here, things to consider, because we're going to develop a treatment plan to address this client's mental health needs. Okay, and you're going to have an opportunity to develop this treatment plan based upon any one of the four modalities that you've chosen, whether it be psychoanalytic or CBT, interpersonal, whatever it is that you wanted to address. And some of you have leaned more toward one modality than the other, but you're going to want to develop a treatment plan based upon that client to fit these key criterions here. And when we look at this, we want to identify these aspects. Okay, so keep in mind when you're developing a paper, let me stress that this is a 3 to 4 page paper, again in APA formatting, you want to think in terms of developing an outline, putting in the key information into each one of the categories, each one of the subtopics here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different subtopics. And each of the subtopics, with the exception of 3, has 2 or 3 items that you're going to want to address within that. Gang, this is essentially your outline. We've already done it for you. We've put an outline in front of you, so utilize this format to create structure for your paper. Okay, you start with this as your basic outline, and you're just going to answer these questions in a paragraph format. I can't stress that enough. Don't make this about here's the question, here's an answer, here's a question, here's an answer. You want to write this in a paragraph, more of a paper format, as opposed to just answering questions. So create a flow to this. This is each one of your headings, and then you've got some subtopics within each one of your categories. Makes sense? Easy peasy. If you've been doing the readings thus far within the class, if you read the information about the different modalities and you're kind of leaning toward one or another, this is going to be fairly easy for you. And this is something you're going to want to spend some time and energy on this week, because this is not the first time that we're going to do that in this class. And you'll also likely have things like this in other classes, not to mention this is a fairly typical type of assignment that you're going to see in a graduate program. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to show you. The first of which is, and I'm just opening up inside Microsoft Word, if I go new from template, I'm going to have this page pop up right here, and I can type in APA. And you're going to see Professional APA Style Paper 7th edition. This is an APA template that's available to you in Microsoft Word. So if you come in here, you can see all the elements of a properly formatted APA paper. And if you read through this information on here, it will actually explain what these items are and give you some tips and insights of how to do it inside of Microsoft Word. Let me just tell you up front, this is a properly formatted cover page. This up here, the running head, you don't need to have a running head inside your papers for class submission. This is usually something that we would utilize in larger submissions or things we're going to publish. This is your basic cover page information. You can see the title, skip a line, author's first name, institution, course number, course name. You usually add the instructor here as well as the date. You don't need to worry about author's notes. You can omit this section, and if you're utilizing this as a template and maybe you want to do it, you can just delete the sections that you don't need and save it as a new template. Again, you don't need the running header. Delete that out if you choose. And for paper of the size that we have most of the time, again, maybe a capstone project in a course at the end of your program, or certainly maybe when you get into larger projects in a graduate program, you might include an abstract, but it's not common that you will. And I'll just delete this section out. I want you to take note of these little things called page breaks. And the reason why I want you to note the page break is because this will help you greatly in terms of your formatting. If you type your information in, say on your cover page, you insert a page break. See, they don't show up later. You insert a page break, it will keep your formatting how it's supposed to be. If I come in and I do something like this and I add more information later, I have to delete or modify those returns. Whereas if I put a page break in, it keeps my formatting in check all the time. This is what we refer to as a level 1 heading. This is a level 2 heading. This is a level 3 heading, and so on. But I want to show you right up in here, level 3, level 2, level 1. These are all of your headings right here. Again, we're already in this template, and so it's going to align them how it's supposed to be. In most cases, most class assignments, including the 2 this week, you will utilize level 1 and level 2 heading. You won't need to go into level 3. In fact, probably most of the time, you won't have to go into level 3 or beyond. Larger projects, capstones, maybe occasionally you go into that 3rd. Not likely you're going to go into a 4th or 5th unless you're talking about a dissertation or something more intensive. Reference pages, this is just a basic formatting of what the references would look like, the general information you got in there. If you have an APA manual, that's probably the best source to figure out what information would go in your reference. There's also some tools and resources available for you in the campus library in terms of formatting. This sections regarding footnotes. We don't use footnotes too often in APA formatting. In fact, to my knowledge, there's not really a case that I can think of that utilizes footnotes. Nor are you going to use tables or figures. Again, 99% of the time, you won't really utilize this information. As we have toward the end of this template, you can just go ahead and delete this stuff out. And if you were to save this basic template right here, you would have a starting point for every paper that you are going to submit. And you can always have, yourself aligned with APA formatting just like that. And so keep that in mind. There are some reference tools available in here inside Microsoft Word that can help you with things like references. Where it says insert a citation, there's a box that pops up that will ask you to put some information in here. And I will encourage students to use these types of tools a lot of times to help them get started. When you get into the 300 and 400 level classes, you should have a better understanding of how APA formatting works and either do it on your own or utilize maybe a tool that I'm going to show you. Because this tool is not completely accurate in terms of formatting. You can see it's based upon APA 6 as well. And so it's not exactly where it should be. And I gotta say, Microsoft, step up your game because it's a little bit off. There's another tool that I want to show you that I personally utilize. I know a number of faculty utilize it. I know grad students. I really encourage grad students to utilize this tool because it will take care of all the formatting for you. It will always be perfect. You won't have to think about anything. It's easy peasy. There is a downside, and the downside is it's a premium tool that you will have to pay for. And so I encourage students to just be open to it. If it's something that makes sense to you and works for you, get it. If financially it's not working for you, I certainly get it. I've been there as well. This was a tool that honestly, on a tight budget, I recognized as being something I really needed. It's something that I would encourage grad students more than undergrad students, but when you start getting into the 300 and 400 level classes, it's something you might want to consider. So let me go and open up a new document here. You can see on here there's a tab called Perrla. Perrla is an add-in. It's a Microsoft add-in tool. It is something that's approved in the university, so you can add it into your Microsoft account. And I'm going to select, I can do discussion posts, I can do research paper, reference list, annotated bibliography, whatever the case is. There are classes you're going to have. I teach a 400 level class, Psychology and Social Identity. One of the first class assignments is an annotated bibliography that they create and working toward the development of a project. So when you start this up, you can see a student paper or professional paper. If I come in here, it's in APA 7. It's the title, my paper. The author name is just defaulted in here. It's to my settings, institutions on here. The course number, I'm going to say PSY315, and this is Dr. J. And the date that you typically want to put is the submission date for your paper. It's typically what you want. Running headers, it'll tell you right here, and this tool is really great, as it's going to give you little snippets of insights, not a standard part of the student research paper that you utilize a running head. So you can add one if you choose, but you don't really need to. Click on the button to create the research paper, and it is actually going to start a new document. Get rid of that. You can see this is the information that I put in. This is all the information that's required for the cover page. There's the section break or the page break, and this is where you would put your level 1 heading, or essentially the title of the paper would appear right here, would automatically populate at the top of that. It also automatically puts the page numbers in and then gives you a starting place to write your paper. Now, as you go through this paper, you can see there's a host of tools available up here for you in terms of adding references and citations. When we're on the home page right here, here is my formatting. I've got annotations, block quotes, APA heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, APA outline, APA references. It's all, the formatting is all in here. So if I want to add a level 1 heading, all I need to do is change it to level 1. Okay, I can add a level 2 heading, I can add a level 3 heading, and so forth. So I'm not going to get super deep into how to use the tool, but it is here and available to you. Again, this is a subscription-based tool. This is one of the reasons why I think this tool is invaluable, is for references and citations. So when you click on references and citations, and you come in here and you click on create a new reference, for example, if you're getting something from the internet and there is a HTML address, not from the databases, let me stress that. This is not something that will work well with EBSCOhost. You can, if you have some DOI numbers or things like that, you can put it in there and it'll look up the information. But if you do happen to find something that is appropriate to use for your submission, you can just put the HTML address in here. It'll create the reference for you. Or you might have to do a manual type of submission. Maybe you're reading a journal article. You're reading one of the journal articles that we have this past week. Click on journal article. You're going to come down here and you can select author, group author, editor, translator, etc. In most cases, it's an author. It might have more than one author. So we're going to say first author. Maybe we have a suffix. Maybe we don't have a second. Second, we can do a second author. If you know from formatting, sometimes the person's full name will be on there. We only need initials for the first and middle name. We'll use N, why not? We're going to put the publication title. This is and it'll say capitalize the first word of the title, subtitle, and all proper nouns. If there isn't a title, add a description inside the brackets. So this is a great research article on CBT. Okay. Only use capital letters for acronyms, which we did. Words in all capital letters must be left in capitals when formatting the title of your paper. So perfect. The journal is Journal of CBT. You can see, type the full name of the journal exactly as it appears in the publication. You probably want to, we'll say, year of the publication. Let's say we're citing an article that appeared this past year. Is there a volume number? We're going to say it's volume 16, issue number 2. And again, all this information is available on EBSCOhost. If you're reading the article, it's on there. If you're holding a hard copy journal, I don't know if we have too many of those anymore, it's right there. Sometimes it'll give you the actual page numbers. So this is page 45 to 49. If there's a DOI, this is one of those things where if you have the information, put it in there. If you don't, leave it blank. And when we access that information, now, There's some rules about when to do the retrieval dates and when not to. Retrieval dates, if it's a journal article that was published in a journal, you won't need a retrieval date because the information is the information. It's not going to change. If it's a web page, for example, and the information changes occasionally, then you might put the date of retrieval on there. Here's a live preview of what it's going to look like. We're going to click on next. This is going to say CBT article. This is really just mostly for you. And then we're going to create it. Now, there's a couple things that's going to happen when I create this. For starters, hopefully it creates and doesn't freeze up on me. There it goes. Took a little bit longer, made me nervous there. Nothing like a live video, right? So it created a section break in here and it added the references down here. Now, every time I create a new reference, it'll add it to this list automatically in alphabetical order with the hanging indent in exactly the format that I need to put this in. Pretty cool, right? As I type, to add a citation, all I need to do is click on add a citation, leave all this as it is. If it is something that I'm summarizing or paraphrasing, it's not a direct quote. If it is something I want to cite the author specifically, I either have to add a page number. In most cases, if it's primary or secondary research, you'll have a page number, even if it's available online, or a paragraph number, and that might be a website where you're taking the information from, in which case you're going to count how many paragraphs down from the top of the page to where the information was found that you're going to put in there. Let's actually I'm just going to leave it as not a direct quote for right now and click on create a citation. And you can see author and author 2024. Now, I'm writing some more information in my paper. And I want to add a reference that I utilized last week when I was writing that paper. So I'm going to go back to that book and I'm going to grab some information from a source that I've already done before, and in which case I'll hit next here. And you can see that it's added that author here in alphabetical order. It's added to the reference list here. And then now I'm going to go in and say I want to add a citation here. But this time I'm going to use a direct quote from page number 7. And there you have it. Okay. If it's a paragraph number, same thing. Paragraph 8. And it's the abbreviation para, means paragraph number. So it will greatly help you to take care of your formatting on autopilot. It takes care of all the references. It'll always make sure that it's in perfect APA format. You can see all of your headers are here. So if you need to change your headers or adjust things, it's all very easy to do. There's a whole host of tools available in terms of abstract, tables of contents, appendices, and so forth. Again, if you're writing larger projects, those are important. Great tool for graduate students, and students start getting into 300-400 level classes. It's something I usually share with them. The downside of this, of course, is the fact that it is, I think, about, I want to say it's about 75 bucks or 79 bucks. $79.95 a year. So again, something just to keep in mind. It is something to consider. If it is something that you do want to utilize, I'm going to put this promo code in the bottom. I receive nothing from this, by the way. You can see my subscription is a lifetime subscription. I have it forever. I don't get any money from them or anything like that. This is just a code that you'll want to put in if you do buy it, because it'll give you 3 extra months for free. So you'll get like a 15-month subscription for that price, as opposed to a 12-month subscription. So it's certainly in your best interest. Again, I don't get anything from it. Get it, don't get it. I don't hold any energy on that, but it is something that I've utilized all through graduate school, and it is a tremendous asset to have. So just something to consider. Either way, you can certainly do it on your own. I hope this information helped you to get a solid grasp of some of the basics in terms of referencing, as well as an overview of the assignments this week. I know it ran on long, but a lot of students are struggling with some of those basics in terms of formatting. One last thing that I wanted to share with you all is inside the course, click on academic support, and you can go to this page where there is a whole host of support resources available for you. This one in particular, I think, is a tremendous value because you can write your paper. You must be complete a couple of days in advance of the deadline and submit it to the writing lab to have a writing coach go through it, and they can check for formatting issues. They can check for some grammar or spelling issues, phrasing, awkward sentences, things of that nature, give you some notes and some feedback on your submission to help you to become a better writer. This is a great resource, but again, you can't wait until 6 o'clock on Sunday night to submit your paper. You're just not going to get it back in time. So make sure that you get on these things a little bit sooner as opposed to later. It'll help you greatly, and you can utilize resources like this. I myself did this through the bulk of my undergraduate program and even in part of my graduate program, just to help make my my submissions that much better. So if you have any questions about anything I shared this week, don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you found this video of value. Make sure and be active and engaged this week. Be on top of your coursework throughout the week. It'll be greatly to your advantage, as some of these things are going to take you a little more time than maybe what you're used to. So everybody have a great reach out as needed. I look forward to reading your submissions and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.